Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another political episode. So, we have breaking news. Steve Symms, United States Senator from Idaho, has unfortunately passed away 2 days ago. Today is the 10th. He passed away yesterday on the 9th. Steve Symms, a United States Senator from Idaho, passed away on the 8th. Never mind, he passed away on my big long trip to Iowa. But yes, uh, so we'll be talking about Senator and also Representative Congressman Steve Symms and his legacy. In regards to um when it comes to his Senate tenure and his electoral history. When it comes to this, so let's get started. Yes, so let's take a look at. He was indeed more conservative than the average United States Senator. A lot of people would say he is far right. But to go and call someone far right, you need a lot of proof. Sure, Mr. Symms was opposed to, as you know, condemning and holding South Africa, which was under an apartheid government, accountable. And as it says here, Symms was one of several Republicans who, in 1981, called into the White House to express discontent over the nomination of Sandra Day O'Connor to the Supreme Court. It is true, Sandra Day O'Connor, I want to believe she is a conservative. Yeah, she was a Republican. And I wonder who appointed her to the Supreme Court. Oh, Ronald Reagan. And of course, Sandra Day O'Connor had the opposition hinged over the issue of the unwillingness of O'Connor to overturn Roe v. Wade. So Sandra Day O'Connor was most likely not really probably opposed to overturning this, as you should know. But yes, he was not so happy with that conspiracy. She hasn't really said she opposed it or supported it, but he alleged that she most likely supported abortion. And this guy has, I would say, he's bold. Yes, he's bold, very more like Trump. I will compare him to Trump. He's not afraid to say to speak his mind. He's not afraid. If it offends you, it offends you. It's not really my concern if it offends you. I'm speaking my truth and my opinion. But yes, when it does. When it comes to that. Interesting. But yes, let's talk. Other than going over the first stuff, we got to talk about the Senate, the U.S. Senate, House of Representatives. Yes, Miss Senator. Oh yes, Steve Symms represents the first district of Idaho, and that first district consists of the antenna. I would like to call that an antenna. Some people call it the panhandle. I prefer to it as the antenna. And are you the person that calls this an antenna or a um panhandle? Let me know down below. But yeah, this is pretty interesting here. Geographical figure when it comes to that first congressional district. He served that district in 1972. He defeated Ed Williams. Steve Symms won 56% to Ed Williams 44%. Re-elected in 1974, where Steve Symms won 58%, 2 points better than his 1972 performance. You'll see he defeated J. Ray Cox, who ended up carrying 42% of the popular vote. In 1976, Steve Symms defeated Ken Pursley, who Symms succeeded in carrying 55% of the popular vote against Pursley's 45. So percent. So yes, he went down significantly a little bit. He actually, went down 3 points. Down, I'd say 3 points, down to the 55%. And in 1978, Symms performed his very best, where he seized 60% of the popular vote against Roy Truby, who ended up winning 40% of the popular vote at the end of the day. 1978. So yes, that's right. Symms served four terms as United States Senator from Idaho. 8 years. I'm not senator, excuse me, representative. 8 years in the House of Representatives until 1980. Congressman Symms announced that he would not seek another term in the U.S. House of Representatives. Instead, he would seek to run for Congress in the United States Senate. And that's the 1980 election. Now, this was a bold move because Steve Symms is going against the very popular, very well-known U.S. Senator across the country, Frank Church. And he died very young, 59 in 1984. He actually ran for president. He was so popular. But yes, Frank Church, what do you got to know about him? Yeah, he won landslide after landslide, 60% in Idaho. He made Idaho look like a very deep, solid blue state when it comes to that. Yes, you'll see, I believe Frank Church at one point, if you add all his electoral history together, he carried every single Idaho county. But in 1980, Frank Church's reign came to an end. And surprisingly so, he actually was defeated. And this was one of the most closest races in the whole entire Senate cycle. You'll see Steve Symms campaigned. He had a really good chance of winning. That after all, he was a congressman from Montana, U.S. federal congressman from Montana. Frank Church, though, very well liked guy, but most Idahoans were tired of him, and it was time to move on. Then again, most Idahoans were conservative Republicans. Most Idahoans were registered Republicans. So, yes, you'll see here. Very different compared to today's simple map. We usually see Blaine County, which is the more liberalist county in all of Idaho, and along with, I'm forgetting this county right here, these two counties, or it's just these three. But we're usually seeing Idaho and Democrats just carrying three counties in Idaho. Now, back then in the 80s, the Democrats had a whole significant influence in this big antenna. The northern Idaho, or the boundary region, if it's sometimes called, of Idaho in their sphere of influence. They had this whole region in their hands. And yes, it's very beneficial to them. And when it comes to that, with that also, they didn't just have this. As you can see, it's this county too, Shashun, I want to believe, Shashun County. These two counties over here, 1, 2, 3, 4 counties, they're 60% Democrat. And then you got these counties, Ada County, which holds Boise, is barely conservative at this point. It's a dominantly conservative city, but seeing how Frank Church is, a very influential figure of this city, has been in bounds for him. But yes, Frank Church, we don't know if he won the city, but he couldn't win the county of Ada, which went to Steve Symms barely. And Steve Symms won the election by 1 point. Actually, he didn't win the election by a point. He won the election by, let's just say, I want to say 0.96%, almost 1 point, compared to Frank Church, who lost by 0.96%. But he went down, but he didn't go down like Lori Lightfoot in 2022 or something like that, 2023. He didn't go down like sinking ship. He actually went down kind of honorably. He almost won re-election, which is actually a really good way. If you have to be defeated, it would be less stressful and less and more honorable to go down by just 1 point than to go down by a landslide. It's more that would leave you knowing that, hey, you know what? I don't think I did such a good job. It's just Frank Church. He probably left office thinking I did a good job. It's just I've been in office for a long time. People want a new congressman. It's true, and that's not just for Idaho, but for every state. Too. That's why people are getting excited for this year's Senate race in Idaho's neighbor, the eastern neighbor, Montana, because people think, oh, John Tester's been there forever. But to be honest, he hasn't been as long in the Senate as Frank Church, who's been in there since the 1950s. He actually 1956 was like 1957 to 1981. People are like, okay, we like you, Frank, but you've been in there for almost 30 years. You gotta go. You gotta go. And plus, Church's health was declining. I mean, he died in 84, 4 years later. But hey, he has to run for president, right? He has to run for president. And I want to believe he ran for president in 76, but we're not talking about Frank Church. It's either 76 or 72. But yeah, so in people grow to Steve Symms. He's not the strongest guy, as you can see. He's somewhat controversial because this guy, of course, is deemed as too far right. And we could go ahead and we're not going to go ahead and call him to like more populist conservative movements like MAGA today. MAGA back then was Reagan movement. And that, by fact, Ronald Reagan did indeed use "Make America Great Again." That's where the term first used. So you could say he is a MAGA Republican. The first stage MAGA Republican. I don't think he would be first stage MAGA Republican today, though. He's not really. I did say he's kind of like Donald Trump, but is he a Trump goer? I don't know. I really don't know. I know that Budley, James A. I don't know what that senator from New York who is a conservative, very big conservative, huge fan of Ronald Reagan, very controversial guy. Didn't like Trump though, and didn't vote for him. But does show that not every conservative out there supports Donald Trump. And just keep that in mind. So yeah, Steve Symms, who wins re-election barely again by like 3 points against this guy, John V. Evans. And John V. Evans has a background. He is the governor of Idaho. And he felt the need to run in 1986. And he's already in office. He's the incumbent governor of Idaho. And let's just say he made the decision of passing the cane. I don't know if Idaho has term limits, though. But he made the decision to pass the sword to someone else. And I can guarantee you his successor... Let's see. His successor, Cecil Andrus. Okay, he was a big Democrat. Big Democrat. Very popular Democrat. So he didn't blunder it. He passed it to the right guy. But, yes. Unfortunately for him, Evans couldn't take out Symms. He was just, although kind of underperformed the average performance when it comes to Idaho. Once again, he is a weaker player. Although he did flip a lot of counties and solidified Ada, like better than 1980. And that's expected because you don't have a church in there, a Frank Church to be exact, who is going to be causing a lot of ruckus, and everyone loves this guy. He's like a star. You won't be causing any more problems. But then again, you're kind of a figure like, I mean, you beat a very popular star. You're somewhat strong, but then again, you're kind of being hated on because you're being a little too right wing, according to your constituents. But yeah, that's why the governor of Idaho is running, and the governor of Idaho, I believe, is kind of popular. Yes, he is popular. He defeated Phil Batt. 58%. Yeah, he's well liked. But then again, I guess they like old Steve better. Steve is better. I mean, I wouldn't say Steve Symms is hated. I would say he's very bold. I would say most of Iowans love Steve Symms, and they're going to definitely miss him. And yes, he only serves 2 years in the 2 terms in the United States Senate after retiring in 1992 and leaving politics. That said, Senator Symms didn't basically saying, nope, I feel content in my service in politics. I'm quitting altogether, and that's respectable. I'm sure all his opponents would definitely support that. But yes, and that is that. So what do you guys think about Senator Symms, who has never been defeated apparently? I wonder if he's been state senator. Yeah, he has never been defeated. He never lost an election, which is impressive. So anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below, and as always, I'll see you all in the next political episode.